Hi guys, it is Mr. Fed. Welcome back to the channel. I am back in the man cave. I want to do a quick review on this game here called Trinity Trigger. I've dropped about 25 hours into this game. It's not a big game. I've got to the end of the game and I was all ready to give it quite a sizable score of at least probably 8, maybe even 8.5 out of 10, because I really have enjoyed the majority of my time with this game. I'm going to have to downplay the score a little bit once I got to the end of the game for an issue that might even be partly my fault, but I will explain a little bit more about that in due course. So what is Trinity Trigger? Trinity Trigger is basically, if you've ever played The Secret of Mana or understand the Mana games, it's essentially a clone of The Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo. You control 3 heroes. You wander around the world, and you go about bringing peace to the land by exploring various temples, upgrading your skills, and defeating various bosses at the end of these temples. It's your time and task bog basic JRPG. That's not to say it's bad at all. Now, when you go to towns in traditional JRPGs, you normally upgrade your weapons and your armor by going to shops, selling your existing weapons or armor, and buying the newer upgraded models of your weapons and armor. In this game, it works slightly different. What you have is you're allocated like a trigger. Well, what's a trigger? A trigger in its non-weaponized form looks a little bit like a Pokemon, a little bit like a small furry Pikachu. And when you go into battle, your trigger turns into a weapon. As you explore dungeons, you will come across altars, and the altars will give your trigger powers to form into new weapons. Now that's really, really handy. As you battle monsters, you'll have a monster encyclopedia, and that will tell you, once you defeated the monster, what weapons that monster is weak to and what weapons that monster is strong to. So if you're attacking a monster with a weapon that it's strong to, you're not going to do him much damage. So you need to think on your feet when you're in battle, because it's an action JRPG, to switch over the weapon or change your trigger into a different weapon. Say you were using the sword, but the monster's weak to the bow and arrow. You change him over to the bow and arrow, and then attack the monster. You'll do a lot more damage, and you'll kill him a lot more quickly. So there is some elements of that. Now, changing weapons or changing your trigger into a different weapon is really, really easy. In the middle of combat, you just got to press the top trigger button. It will bring up a circle ring. You push your joystick to the direction of the weapon you want to change to, and then you press A or come out of the circle ring, and you continue on with your combat. Much in the same vein as when you want to heal during battles. If you need a healing potion, or perhaps want to take a strength pill, you can just call up the potions wheel with a top trigger button. Exactly same principle, really quick, really easy to heal, and really quick, really easy to change weapons in battle. So that does offer a little bit of variety of gameplay, having the right weapon to attack the right monster to get through the game. The downside of that is obviously you've got 3 characters. Now you can change the character you control just by pressing your ZR or your ZL button, but really there's no point, because all your characters, eventually your triggers will have all the same weapons, they have all the same skill sets, and they have all the same characteristics. So there's no differentiation between the characters at all. There's no different strengths or no different weaknesses between the 3 characters. So that's a bit of variation between the characters would have made it a little bit more interesting to entice you to change the character that you're controlling. But being as they're all exactly the same, and your triggers all have exactly the same patterns and exactly the same weapons, there's no point in deviating between characters. You might as well just control the one that you're most comfortable with, or the one that you've powered up the most. So all well and good. Now, when you're controlling your character, the other 2 characters in your party are controlled by the AI. I didn't have or come across any problems with this at all. As you attack, your AI comrades also attack. If you dodge, your AI comrades also dodge. Because the attacking is quite simple, you've got 1 button for dodge and 1 button to swing your sword. You can allocate different skills to your sword swinging, so perhaps your 3-hit combo, you can make it look slightly different, but essentially that's all it is. It's kind of an aesthetic thing really. I really didn't feel that changing your skill set or your combo set allocated to a weapon really delivered much more damage or offered much more in the way of gameplay, apart from making it look aesthetically a little bit different. So this is all well and good. I was cruising in this game. I was finding the temples really engaging and interesting. I thought the crafting mechanics were quite good. I was upgrading my triggers with various gems that you need to craft and collect as you go through these temples, open up treasure chests. The treasure chests were quite well hidden, so there was a little bit of searching involved. There's lots of side quests. I think in total there's about 35 side quests to complete in the core game, and the side quests were quite interesting. You explore new areas of the map, you kill monsters, you clear areas, you do a fetch request, things like that. You collect things and then deliver them to other people. I mean, it's standard JRPG stuff, and that's not a bad thing, because that's the sort of thing I like to play. The real issue here, and the reason why I have to downplay the score from an 8 or a 8.5 out of 10 to perhaps a 7, is the ending, the final boss. That is where everything became unstuck for me. Now, as I said earlier, you can only control one character, and the 2 other characters were controlled by the AI, and that was absolutely fine until I got to the final boss. Now, in a JRPG, I fully anticipate a massive difficulty spike for the final boss. Now, that's absolutely fine. I expect that, and the final boss will probably take on at least 3, possibly even 4 different forms. Now, that's fine. I don't mind fighting a boss like that, and if I lose, going away, leveling up, maybe looking and tweaking my armor, etc., going back and trying again, because they are variables that I can control. The variable that I cannot control in this game is obviously my 2 AI controlled comrades. Now, they just did not have the intelligence to avoid all the boss attacks that they needed to avoid. So my AI comrades, which were doing perfectly fine up until this end point of the game, they just didn't have the intelligence to avoid the main boss attacks that they needed to avoid, and they just died very, very quickly. Now, part of this is my fault. I'll explain why. This is a 3-player game. I'm 43 years old. I do not have 2 other friends that I can play JRPGs with. My friendship circle, in terms of who I actually can play games with now, has shrunk to the size of something akin to a piss hole in the snow. That is about the size of my friendship circle with who I game with now at the age of 43. So if I had 2 other friends which I could take control of the other 2 characters in my party, I have no doubt that this final boss, we could take it down and we could complete this game quite easily. But as it stands, my 2 AI comrades died quite quickly. I've looked on the internet, and it seems like this is, I'm not the only one that has this problem, and there's a few sort of threads on Reddit which have also explained this problem. I've had I read one post which just said that he just had to leave his 2 AI comrades to die and just had to try and do it solo. Now, I tried that, tried doing it solo with like the bow and arrow, tried to hit him from a distance, but the thing is, perhaps a 45-minute boss battle, if you try and do it on your own and you're the only one inflicting damage on this boss, I mean, I got 2 hours into that boss fight. I'd only taken away perhaps maybe a quarter or a third of his energy. I wasn't going to sit there for another 2 hours while I just slowly chipped away in that manner. So you do need your 2 comrades, but the AI is not intelligent enough to cope with the complexities and the attacks that the final boss gives you. So on that basis, I was going to give it an 8, 8.5. I'm going to downgrade it to 7. everything up until the final boss, all the usual bosses that you fight in the usual temples. The attacks weren't that complex. My AI characters were able to deal with those attacks, and I was able to beat those bosses quite easily. The final boss was a whole different ball game, and it's a variable that I just couldn't control unless I had two friends, which I sadly don't. Outside of that, I think I paid, what did I pay for this? Oh, it was about 30 quid. I picked it up from Game. I do think it's value for money outside of that. If you've got the patience, perhaps, or you have two friends to combat this final boss with, there is a lot of enjoyment to have from this game. Now, it doesn't look the best. It doesn't have incredible, amazing graphics. If you're going to compare this game to something like Bravely Default or Octopath Traveler, I mean, it certainly doesn't look as pretty as those games, but I've never been a graphics guy. I've always been a gameplay guy, and for its money, I mean, I think it gave me its money's worth, and for the most part, I was invested and did enjoy the storyline. It stuck to what it was good at very well, and it didn't over bloat or over inflate the narration. So yeah, that's it, guys. That is my thoughts on Trinity Trigger. As I said, I will probably rest on a 7, possibly a 7.5 out of 10. Now, there was a comment in my last video that I don't show any sort of gameplay footage of games when I talk about them, and that is simply because I don't know how. I do have no idea and no equipment how to edit slick looking videos. These are purely my thoughts on these games. I'm sure you can find tons and tons of clips of these games on the YouTube and other parts of the internet elsewhere. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. That's my thoughts on Trinity Trigger, and until next time, I will see you in the next video.